Hi everyone. I mentioned in a previous video that I'm going to reline my forge, but before I do that, I'd like to do some forge welding. And the reason being is that forge welding can be very destructive to the lining of a forge, of a gas forge like my small single burner here. So I'd like to do the forge welding first and then replace the lining. And then I'll show you the effects of the forge welding on the lining itself after I make the video. And what I'm going to forge weld is I'm going to use an alternative way to make a pair of tongs, or just at least show you half of the tong. So you might find that interesting, and hopefully you can learn something from this. essentially what I've done here is just take the original stock, which was 1/2 inch round, and then I tapered it, but with backing up blows, which upsets this area just a bit to give you a little extra material, and that'll wind up being down here. And it's not essential for this type of a weld, but it's nice to have some extra material because this is so hot, and when you hammer this together, you're going to thin it out quite a bit. So, but for this, because it's a Tong blank, I don't think it matters so much. And in fact, I actually think that you probably don't even need to taper this. You could just bend this over onto itself, weld it, and then just have it, have it as such, where it's bent onto itself like this. And then have that blunt. And I think that would be fine because this is going to be the back end of the boss for this Tong blank, which you'll see. So, and then the red area here designates where it was forge welded. And you'll see pretty much that's it. So it looks pretty good. But I have another idea. And the other idea, which I'll try maybe next time, is to actually bend it onto itself, but with a hook. Sorry for the loud motorcycle. With a hook. And then do a sort of a butt weld, where it's just welded here initially, and then after that's successfully welded, then finish it out by welding the remaining hoop inside this hoop area, hammering that together. And I think that'll make it so that this also will be more blunt on this end. And I think that'll work out very well for being a Tong blank as well. So that's just something else I'd like to try, and so maybe I'll give that a go next time. Yeah, so my forge really needs relining. I'll try to get in close here and kind of give you a peek inside. And so I'll make a video of that and let you guys see what that looks like once I take this apart. But I just wanted to show quickly one of the reasons why I don't like to forge weld. So if you see the bottom, this refractory ceramic board, which wasn't in too bad a shape, if you look at it now, it's completely pitted from the high heat and the flux melting. I'll bring that over here. So you can see next to, I'll pull over, this is a new board. And then this board I've used quite a bit, and it just had this more tannish brown look, but still very usable. But just forge welding twice did that. So it's a very destructive process due to the high temperatures, flux, and impurities. Okay, for this forge weld, I've essentially had 3 goes at it. And this was the first, and I feel this welded very nicely here, but as usual with me, I had a little problem with the tail here. And again, I think it's because, I'm striking here first when my initial blow, I think, for this type of weld should be right on that tail to get that welded first. Otherwise, like I'm going to describe, is that it will pop up on this end, cool down too much, and then won't be weldable. So that was the first one, but I was not happy because I didn't fold enough material over, I feel. So then the next go was completely unsuccessful. It was what I thought it welded. I didn't taper this one. I just left it like a butt end, like I said, but of course I'll just blame it on the forge, but yeah, it was, I feel like I was at the end of my gas tank, and I couldn't I couldn't dial the pressure up enough, but, anything but blame my technique, right? So, and anyway, I just started to fool around to form it, as I was saying with, to make a Tong blank, to form the jaw, and then, once I was doing that, it started to split open. And I punched it a little just to see what was going on, but yeah, not successful. Could be salvaged if I can weld that together. And then basically, I was going to, from about here maybe, then form the back end of the boss for the pivot area, hammering like this, like such. If that was forge welded, if all this was good, that'd be great. Leaves a lot of material here, enough for a nice jaw, so that'd be a good Tong. I mean, the thing for me is all the Tongs that I sell, I use a different technique. I use upsetting and not forge welding, just because for me personally, it's just too wildly inconsistent. And with the gas forge too, it's not like coal as far as the BTUs that you can generate. So, that was the first one, pretty good weld, tail end, but not enough material folded. The second one, a bad weld, and then the third one was successful. So, and here you can see I have more material bent over. So what I'll do now is I'll just form that into a Tong blank, and then we'll see what it looks like. That weld was definitely very successful. You can see a little bit of a seam there, but nothing to really bother me. So that's basically that. I mean, I can get on and, clean this up, but here you've got a tong in the making. It's not the way I usually make my tongs, but definitely would be a very good tong. And, hopefully you guys have learned something from this, and you can learn from what I do right and learn from my mistakes as well. So, until next time. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.